Alexander of Macedon stands at the threshold of the impossible, a figure whose philosophical significance emerges not from treatises or systematic doctrine, but from the trajectory of a life that questioned every boundary it encountered. Whether one views him as enlightened conqueror or ambitious tyrant is less philosophically relevant than the fact that his actions express a coherent worldview about human potential, about the relationship between the individual and the infinite, and about what it means to refuse limitation. Through his campaigns, his cities, his friendships, and his death, one can discern a structured philosophy of transcendence. Alexander's thought belongs to the tradition of Greek excellence, yet it pushes beyond the boundaries his teachers established. It grapples with questions that remain urgent. How far can human ambition legitimately extend? What justifies the transformation of the world? Can unity emerge from conquest? And what becomes of the self that seeks to contain everything? At the foundation of Alexander's worldview lies pothos, a Greek term indicating divine longing for the unattainable. This was not mere ambition. It was metaphysical hunger, a belief that human nature contains an impulse toward the unlimited. Where others saw borders, Alexander saw invitations. Pothos functions as both gift and curse. It drives expansion, yet permits no rest. Alexander's campaigns reflect not merely strategic calculation, but existential necessity. To stop moving was to confront an inner emptiness that motion temporarily obscured. The pursuit becomes the purpose. Destiny functions not as fixed inevitability, but as invitation to self-creation. Alexander's education under Aristotle shaped this framework profoundly. For 3 years, the young prince studied ethics, politics, and the concept of arete, excellence. Aristotle taught that fulfillment requires actualizing one's potential. Alexander interpreted this principle with radical ambition. If his capacities appeared without limit, then fulfillment demanded extraordinary action. The philosophical education produced explosive engagement. Knowledge became instrument rather than end. Alexander carried scholars and historians on campaign, transforming military expedition into epistemological project. This fusion of knowledge and power reflects a worldview in which wisdom validates itself through transformation of reality. Central to Alexander's philosophy is cosmopolitanism, the belief that human excellence transcends cultural boundary. His contemporaries divided humanity into Hellenes and barbarians, civilized and savage. Alexander rejected this through action. He adopted Persian customs. He married foreign princesses. He integrated conquered peoples into positions of authority. When his veterans protested, Alexander insisted that excellence could emerge from any culture. Virtue belonged to individuals, not bloodlines. Alexander founded more than 20 cities as nodes of cultural synthesis. These Alexandrias functioned as laboratories where Greek philosophy could encounter Persian wisdom, where boundaries between conqueror and conquered might dissolve. The ideal was integration, a unified world in which the best elements of each tradition contributed to collective flourishing. Yet this vision encountered resistance. Greeks feared dilution, Persians resented subordination, Macedonians grew alienated. Unity through conquest generates resentment, even as it creates connection. Alexander's relationship with glory illuminates another dimension of his thought. He slept with Homer's Iliad beneath his pillow, viewing himself as heir to Achilles. The Homeric hero faced a choice: long life in obscurity or brief life remembered eternally. Alexander internalized this as philosophical principle. Mortality could be transcended through deed and memory. Biological death was inevitable, but narrative immortality remained available to those whose actions merited remembrance. This pursuit of glory shaped his strategic decisions. The cutting of the Gordian knot exemplifies this approach. Faced with an intricate puzzle that prophecy claimed only the future ruler of Asia could solve, Alexander drew his sword and severed it. The gesture combined pragmatism with theater, generating a story that reinforced his destiny. Glory was not vanity. It was existential strategy, a method for inscribing meaning into contingent existence. Yet this pursuit carried darkness. The need for continuous validation produces instability. Alexander's execution of Philotas, his murder of Clytus, his demand for prostration from his followers, all signal the psychological strain of maintaining extraordinary reputation. The hero cannot rest because rest invites scrutiny of motivation. Conquest becomes compulsion. Glory becomes burden. Alexander's conception of kingship reflects his broader philosophy. Authority derives from demonstrated excellence, not birthright alone. Leadership functions as performance, a continuous demonstration that justifies obedience. This model produces charismatic intensity, but structural fragility. When Alexander died at 32, his empire disintegrated immediately. No institution could substitute for personal magnetism. Alexander's relationship with violence complicates his legacy. Cities that resisted faced destruction. Populations that rebelled met brutal reprisal. Yet this violence operated within a framework of purpose. It served the vision of unified order. This logic reveals the shadow within Alexander's philosophy. When transcendent ends justify any means, the philosopher-king becomes indistinguishable from the despot. Alexander's death in Babylon crystallizes the paradox of his existence. He conquered the known world, yet died from fever or poison. When asked to whom he left his kingdom, he allegedly replied, "To the strongest." Authority belongs to excellence. Succession requires demonstration. Yet this principle guaranteed fragmentation. The Diadochi, his generals, carved the empire into competing kingdoms. The cosmopolitan dream survived in modified form through Hellenistic culture, but the political unity dissolved. Alexander's philosophy ultimately poses a question rather than offering resolution. Can limitless ambition serve human flourishing? Does the pursuit of transcendence justify transformation of the world? His life demonstrates both the grandeur and the cost of refusing limitation. Pothos inspires exploration, yet denies satisfaction. Cosmopolitanism broadens human community, yet imposes foreign will. Glory grants symbolic immortality, yet feeds paranoia and isolation. Alexander remains philosophically significant, not because he resolved these tensions, but because he embodied them with such intensity that their structure becomes visible. He represents an archetypal confrontation between human ambition and worldly constraint. His empire fell, but his question endures. What becomes of the self that refuses to accept any horizon as final?